Hello, everyone, and welcome to Marvel-ous Movie Mondays. Happy Monday, Kelsey. How are you?
I'm great, Dill. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah, it's been a good week. Loki episode 4. We're already down to the last two, which is
Mm-hmm.
insane. But this definitely propelled us into insanity, which I can't wait to talk about. But
Yep.
first, in lieu of news, we decided we would switch it up here on the show because we love giving you the news. But the thing is, we record these closer to when the episode drops. So by the time it's the podcast airs and then the next episode happens, it's only like 2 or 3 days. So there's not a ton of news. Yeah, we got
Mm-hmm.
another Shang-Chi trailer, but it's kind of the same shit we've seen. And I don't want to really examine it too much because it did show. Yes, Kelsey, I'll let you chime in about that because it was pretty cool. But what do you have to
Although
say about
right
that?
at the tail end, we
Yes,
did get a glimpse of what has been confirmed by Kevin Feige.
Feige.
Feige. Oh my god, that's so embarrassing. I should definitely know how to say
Well, there's a director
his
named
name.
Paul Feig who directed Bridesmaids. So there
Okay,
is a guy named Feig out there, but this is Feige, so
Kevin
it's fair.
Feige confirmed that we saw in a Wong fighting Abomination right at the
Mhm.
tail end of the Shang-Chi trailer, which
Yep.
made fans lose their minds.
Yeah.
So that was
And
exciting.
it was also confirmed that we would also see a few other heroes at this brawl type thing or other Marvel people. So that was exciting. But again, I feel like the rest of the trailer was kind of just what we kind of already knew. And then
Mhm.
that last bit at the end. So we didn't want to spend all this time on the new trailer because all the other YouTubers have gone through it all, whatever. But something I haven't seen a lot of YouTubers doing, maybe because a lot of them have seen the movie from the embargo, the critics embargo have seen the movie already, but we haven't, is Black Widow. There's this poster of this random masked villain named the Taskmaster. And Kelsey has no idea who's playing the Taskmaster, either him, a she, a they. We don't know who is behind the mask. And I don't know who's behind the mask.
Okay.
I even, just doing some Black Widow research, I even looked it up because I didn't know it was a secret. And I was like, who's playing the Taskmaster? And nothing. There's
No one
no
knows.
information out there. So we thought it'd
Mm.
be fun to play our own little game that we call Who is Taskmaster? So we are going
Mm.
to go through our five. Each of us brought 5 actors or characters to the table that we think might end up being Taskmaster, and then we're going to go back and see how accurate we were or how completely out of left field we were. So Kelsey, who is and we'd love if you're watching this or listening to this, go on the YouTube and comment who you think the Taskmaster might be. And if you are spoiled and want to ruin it for everyone, please don't, because we don't know, and we will be giving you an episode next week about Black Widow. We're seeing it a week from the day we're recording it, which is pretty cool. But yeah, please do not spoil it. But Kelsey, who's your first pick for maybe who you want to see or who you think could be the Taskmaster?
Okay. Well, first of all, I already have some predictions about who this antagonist might be.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this whole movie explores Natasha's past. So I'm thinking that probably might be someone who she encountered during her days at the Red Room during
Mm-hmm.
that whole assassin training school that she had to go through. So I immediately only picked women.
Okay.
Um and I don't know why she came to me. She came to me randomly, but I'm really proud of this pick, and that's why she's my number one. And it's Uma Thurman.
Wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about that. Like, what
I
made
just
you?
think that they're keeping it so secret that it has to be some actor where we'll take off the mask and everyone goes, "No way," because I feel
Yeah.
like she hasn't been anything too recently. Like she's known for the Kill Bill films, for the
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction, so we know she can do action
Oh yeah.
sequences. Like we
Oh yeah.
know she has the athleticism, the attitude for it. Like I just think it would be so cool if we were all just blown away with it being Uma
Great.
Thurman.
That's awesome. My first choice for the Taskmaster, I went in the most boring route possible, and that was
Okay.
I looked at the main cast that's already been confirmed and see,
Yeah.
well, who else might be able to put on a costume, kind of like the Miles Morales, his uncle was the villain in Spider
Mm.
Verse thing. Like I was like, who seems the most villainy, and I didn't go for the core family. I might have a one pick from the core family, but then there was this guy, OT Fagbenel, who is in the cast. He is just
Mm.
a random guy on a poster, and apparently he's some sort of either love interest or he has some sort of admiration of Black Widow in the movie. And I just thought there's just really not a lot about his character that's been revealed, and he just seems the character poster is so generic. It's just him
Mm,
standing there. There's no like cool pose or whatever that I'm like, maybe it's him.
mm.
And maybe it's like a, oh, you didn't realize, but it was actually him this whole time thing. So that's like the most generic, boring answer I can come up with. I haven't seen his other work, so I don't know about him as an actor. But just seeing all the character posters, I was like, this one's so bland and boring. I'm sure
Yeah.
he's great, but like he's just kind of standing there looking up in the sky. I'm like, okay, we'll see. Kelsey, who else do you think might be under that Taskmaster mask?
So then I was also thinking of like who's kind of been big recently. They
Yeah.
really like to pick actors who are like, either not like just getting their start, but getting like a fresh, like, fresh attention,
Hmm.
things like that. And there's this
Yeah.
one actress who
Please don't
came to
say
mind.
James Corden. Please
No,
don't
no,
say
no. It
James
is
Corden.
not James Corden, although he would have been a very good like goof
He's
one
getting
to
his
throw
peak.
in. And I didn't really like watch the trailers or anything to look at like the body type or anything
Hmm.
because they are wearing this big clunky suit, so it
Right.
really could be anyone.
Yeah.
But looking back, it's probably not going to be her. But just maybe possibly, I was thinking Elizabeth Moss, just because
Wow.
she
Okay.
was she was just in the Invisible Man horror
Yeah.
movie, so I feel like she has that villainy side that she could bring out. She looks like someone who could be from Russia, who might have been known Natasha from the Red Room kind
Right.
of thing. Like that's kind of the mindset I was going into when I was thinking of actors. So
That's a good pick. And if she shows up on screen, like I will be giddy
yeah,
as hell.
people would
That's
lose their
exciting.
minds.
And coming off of Handmaid's Tale too. I don't watch
Hmm.
it because my Hulu it doesn't exist anymore. It was a family Hulu that we shared that things went wrong and now I don't have access to. But yeah, so I think she's definitely hitting her peak. You're right. So I know I said I wanted to stay away from the core family, but really all the reviews I've been hearing have all been non-spoiler reviews, but everyone's been saying Florence Pugh is a standout. David Harbour's a standout. But no one's been talking about the fourth member of this family, and that is Rachel Weisz. As
Hmm.
apparently the mother role, she was the previous Black Widow, I believe. That's what I believe from the trailer.
Mm,
So my thought was, the whole idea of the Taskmaster, if for those who don't know, is that they can take on, like, they study the fighting habits of different Avengers and they can basically mimic them. So, I thought, who knows Black Widow best than the previous Black Widow herself? So
mm.
I was like, or not previous Black Widow, but like the mother of the family or whatever. I don't know. We haven't seen the movie, so I don't know what exactly her role is. But I thought if any of those core four of those four are the Taskmaster, I think the most likely one would probably be her, only because David Harbour, he's such a big like happy
He's seen
presence, like.
fighting it
Right,
in the
exactly. Like he's
trailer.
seen fighting it. Florence Pugh is supposed to be like the standout, and they're setting her up for more movies. So I feel like this was the one of the family that made the most sense. So I went with Rachel Weisz, but who knows? Kels, what is your third pick?
Well, these are kind of like my goofy ones. I went real
Mhm.
goofy. I just went
Okay.
with like people who, I feel like we've seen them in like so many things recently that it's like,
Mhm.
well, what's one more movie? Let's throw
Right.
them into the MCU because they're
Right.
just like doing so much work. And so my number three pick is Millie Bobby Brown.
So she'd be fighting Hopper. That's a good.
Oh my God. I didn't even think that when I picked her, but yeah, she'd be fighting her father figure.
Wow, and that's funny because like he could easily be like, "Yo, if you need someone for the role, I know this girl. I worked with her on Stranger Things. She's kind of a big deal now.
Oh, I'm sure all the directors and producers have at least heard her name at this
Yeah.
point just because she's so big from Stranger Things and
Who
she's been doing
knows?
all
Yeah.
kinds of different projects recently like Godzilla versus Kong
Yeah.
and
Enola Holmes.
yes, Enola
Yeah.
Holmes exactly. So she
Yeah.
was just like my funny one that I was just
That's.
like, well, you know
Mhm.
what? Let's get Millie Bobby Brown
Right.
involved.
All right. So my first dip into the comedy is still kind of keeping with this idea of maybe it could happen. Like I really do
Okay.
think this is in the realm of possibility.
Maybe
And I
it's so
thought,
ridiculous it could work kind of thing.
well, the whole thing is that the Taskmaster mimics everything the person they're fighting does. So wouldn't it make sense if the Taskmaster reveals themselves and it's Scarlett Johansson herself as the Taskmaster? So what
Whoa,
if
like a
what if
clone?
yeah. Like, or what if it's really her this whole time? It's like a clone fighting herself. I know it's very far fetched, but I was like, wouldn't that be a cool reveal if, Annihilation style Natalie Portman, where it just like pulls off the mask and it's Scarlett Johansson fighting Scarlett Johansson. We've seen the Chris Evans versus Chris Evans fight. Like, it could happen.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
that one I would that of the 5, that is one I most want to happen. But again, it's a little far fetched. But the 2 I have after this are even more so far fetched. But Kelsey, who's your 4th pick?
My 4th one, also just like, I don't know, I've just seen her in so many things recently. Deservingly, I'm not mad about it. She's a fantastic actress, but I just think, I don't know why her name just like came to mind, and so I just had to throw her in here. Olivia Colman.
who is gonna be in Secret Invasion too. So this could
Oh
be a
wow, I didn't
setup.
even know that. So
Yeah,
she's
this could
already
be a
going to be a
setup.
part of the MCU.
But who knows? Maybe because I think Secret Invasion's about the scrolls, so it could be a
Mhm.
way to segue her into the. I mean, honestly, that's not a bad pick. The only thing that strikes me is the fighting style. She's a little
No, yeah,
older to be
yeah.
doing.
She's
Um,
definitely a little bit older now, and I don't see her doing like too much like combat fighting
right.
stuff at this point in her career.
Who knows though?
But
I mean, stunt doubles are the shit. So who knows?
and it's
Um,
fully masked, so it could be anyone,
mhm.
fighting.
So my 4th pick, I thought, if Scarlett Johansson isn't fighting herself, what would make the most satisfying alternative? And that would be her fighting Colin Jost, her her husband. Are they married yet? I don't even know. Engaged? Who knows?
Yeah, I think they are married actually.
So wouldn't it be funny if Taskmaster pulls his mask off and it's fucking Colin Jost?
And he
It's
just like,
it's
welcome
like
back to Weekend Update.
right.
Oh my
I,
god.
I think that would be pretty funny. Then maybe that whole sliming at the Kids' Choice Awards or whatever. Now, or it wasn't even the Kids' Choice Awards; it was some
It
other
was
award,
it
and he
was
slimed
the
her.
I think it was the MTV
Right, and
music video
he
awards or
thought
something.
everyone just slimed everyone. So
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
that was
yeah.
like a little foreshadowing, like, hey, you'll
Maybe.
see this rematch in Black Widow when Colin Jost is revealed as the
Oh my
Taskmaster.
god, that's hilarious.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
who's your final pick, Kels, for the Taskmaster?
Oh, okay. So this one I just threw in just to be like, haha, wouldn't that be so funny? Just because, if you're a diehard MCU fan, which you probably are if you're listening to this podcast, you know that there were a lot of names getting thrown around for the casting of Natasha Romanoff, this name being one of them. In fact, I'm pretty sure she was John Fairview's Favreau's. Oh my god.
Favreau.
Favreau. I'm so sorry. What me and pronunciations today, not good.
You're all
Um
good.
I think she was his first pick for the role when he was casting it for
Oh,
Iron Man 2. So
okay.
I just think it would be so funny if, this person took off the mask and it was boom, Emily Blunt.
Wow, okay. Yeah, and she's been dodging a lot of Fantastic Four rumors too, so maybe
Yeah.
there's a reason she's denying it is
And
because she's the Taskmaster.
she said something recently in an interview how she was kind of almost like grateful that she wasn't a part of it just because it'd be like, so much responsibility, like whatever it was. But maybe she's just throwing a red herring at us, and
Maybe.
they finally got her involved somehow, and she's been in this movie for like, over a year now, and no
Yeah.
one's known. And she's like, oh, the MCU? I would never. Wink, wink.
Because I'm assuming we will not see their face for a long period of time. I feel like it's gonna be a reveal if it is something. And
Yeah.
if it's not, or if it's someone like just totally unknown, or even if it's like a very weak reveal, it's gonna be disappointing because they built up
Hmm.
this character. Like, who is the Taskmaster? So I thought, all right. So I picked
Okay.
someone who I picked a very out there choice. And there's so much you can do with technology now that you can literally put anyone you want in any movie ever
I don't know
if
where
you
this is
try
going.
hard enough. So I think the Taskmaster is going to be an animated Stan Lee. I think they're going to take off the mask and he's going to get his cameo and say, "I was the Taskmaster the whole time."
Oh
And
my god, they
and
give him
and then he's just gonna like it's a Mandarin twist. Like the Taskmaster was a decoy this whole time. It's the
Yeah.
timekeepers. Spoiler alert! Like they were not legit, and it's gonna be Stan Lee who's gonna be like, "I got you," and then he's gonna be like, "I gotta get some shawarma and go home," or something like that. Because at this point in the MCU, he's still alive because this is post Civil War, so he's still there. He just dropped off the package for Tony Stank, and he's out there.
Yeah.
So they might find, and not necessarily animated, but they could do like a CGI, like have a body double, and I'd be here for Stan Lee as the
Oh my
Taskmaster because
god.
all the fighting he has a mask on, so you don't even need him to be there to do it. Obviously,
That's
he can't be
true. That is very true. I don't know. I
So,
don't
Kelsey, now what I want to do, I want you to, out of my 5 picks, pick the most realistic, and then I will pick the most realistic of your 5. So, which of
Okay.
my 5 would you most like to see between OT Fag Benny Bennell, Colin Jost, Rachel Weisz, animated Stanley, and ScarJo herself? Who do you think would be the most satisfying or mix of satisfying and predictable?
I mean, here's the thing, Dill. As you were talking, I realized that I feel like at this point, with like most MCU films, they at least give us the actor. Maybe if they don't give us the character's name, they at least give us like who's playing it. You know, I feel like we
Mm-hmm.
go into most movies knowing like who's playing the antagonist, even if we don't know anything about the character.
Right.
And because they've kept this so under wraps, I feel like if it's any of like the already confirmed cast members, they're gonna be really letting us down. That
Okay.
doesn't mean I think it's Colin Jost or Stan Lee. So I think out of your 5 picks, the most interesting would be ScarJo herself, because maybe the
Interesting.
whole
Okay.
reason why it's not confirmed yet is because actually it has been confirmed. It's the main actor of the film,
Mm-hmm.
just a clone that the freaking red room made themselves, because
Yeah.
she ditched, she bailed, she went rogue, and they were like, well, she was the best student we ever had, we have to make something just like her that is able to mimic her movements and take herself out.
Yeah.
So I think
So,
that would be the most interesting reveal out of
yeah,
your 5.
and I think out of your 5, I'm between 2 of them, only because Emily Blunt was so confirmed about like I'm not in the MCU, and then Millie Bobby Brown I just
Okay.
feel like is a little young. Olivia Colman's a little old. Uma Thurman was, I think, a little now too old to be the Taskmaster, so I think Elizabeth Moss is a good guess because she's still hot in the presses, but she's
Mm-hmm.
still someone that they could at least keep under wraps so people wouldn't be like, stalking her and figuring it out herself. And she seems like someone who would like be okay with a one-off. Like I'll just do one Marvel movie because I don't think she
Yeah.
wants to get roped into it. So
Right.
I'll say that. So who is the Taskmaster? We are leaning toward maybe it's ScarJo herself, and maybe it is Elizabeth Moss. We will see. I like that game. That was fun.
That was fun. I
Yeah.
enjoyed.
Most ridiculous would be Colin Jost. I could not believe it if it happened.
Dude,
But
he
hey,
just takes off the mask. He has that big dopey smile he always has. I would literally
yeah.
be like, I would lose my mind.
Anyway, now segueing to what you all really wanted to hear after 17 minutes of us going on
Yep,
about
yep, yep.
animated Stan Lees in Taskmaster uniforms. We are talking about Loki episode 4. Kelsey, why don't you just set the scene, tell us your little synopsis recap, and give us maybe some thoughts, or just plunge us right into the first scene, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I have a synopsis this week. Fear you
Yeah.
not.
Nice.
Episode 4 is called The Nexus Event. What an episode we got, Dill. This was the episode where I so desperately wanted to text you about it, like as soon as I finished watching it. Like, because we don't talk to each other about the episodes until we get into here podcasting,
Right.
but this was the one where I immediately wanted to be like, whoa, my god, did you see that?
And of course it's the episode I had to wait the longest to watch because I was just so busy.
Yeah.
One of my best friends is getting married, so I've just been
Mhm.
dealing with all that stuff that I haven't
Yep.
been able to focus on this stuff, and I'm like,
Yep.
wow, I'm behind. But I did watch it twice, don't worry.
Awesome. Love to hear it. So, after Loki and Sylvie are rescued from Lamentus, Loki tries to tell Mobius the truth about the TVA. Meanwhile, Hunter B-15 helps Sylvie and Loki overthrow the Timekeepers.
That's right, and we will definitely get into the Timekeepers.
Oh,
Kelsey,
yeah.
so do you have any initial thoughts, or do you just want to go right into it?
Let's just jump right in, Dill, because
Perfect.
those are kind of my thoughts right then and there. All right, so we opened with a cold open of we were in Asgard. We set the scene in Asgard where a young female Loki, seemingly Sylvie, was playing with a kind of a toy Valkyrie and like a toy dragon. And all of a sudden, boom, the TVA show up, they arrest her. And it's very unclear as to why she's getting arrested, but we see them set down the canister and all of her toys vanish from existence. The timeline gets reset. And and the TVA agent who arrested her was Ramona, the actor or a character who's I've been calling the
The
judge this whole
judge, yeah.
time.
Ravona, yeah.
What is it?
I think it's
Ravona?
Ravona with a V, yeah. It's hard because Owen
I was
Wilson,
hearing
everything says
Ramona this whole time.
Well, because it says Owen Wilson, yeah, Ramona.
Ravona, got it.
Like,
That is what I will refer to her as.
I think so. Let me double check.
So once Sylvie gets to the TVA, we see this very scared, timid, looking child, seemingly very innocent and young. Obviously, going through all the things that we saw Loki go through in the beginning. Like going through that metal detector type of thing. Having to confirm everything that she's ever said.
Which
yada
is a much
yada
smaller
yada.
pile than
Exactly, because she's what 8, 9 years old at the time. And then all of a sudden, when she's put before the judge, she's able to break free from Ravona's grasp. She steals her temp pad, and boom, is able to then jump through the timelines.
Yeah,
So
it's
then
Ravona with a V. Just
Ravona.
Mm-hmm.
So then we cut back to present time. That was, the past. We cut back to present day where Ravona tells Mobius that C20 is dead because once she came back to the TVA, her mind was so scrambled and messed up that she was just no longer a person. They decided to, I guess, put her out of her misery, I guess.
Yeah.
And then
So we're told.
So we're told. And then Ravona tells Mobius to find Loki and Sylvie. I guess the Loki credits already rolled. Okay, so then we have scene 2A. We do a lot of jumping back and forth, so I'm calling these next 3 scenes scene 2A, B, and C. Okay. So now we're back on Lamentis, where Loki and Sylvie are seemingly just accepting their fates. They're just preparing for death. And, Sylvie starts to open up about her past and about what happened to her. And she says that when Sylvie was born, the TVA arrested her. And, we don't really understand why she was arrested. It's very vague. We don't really get an answer for it. Even at the end of the episode, we don't even get an answer. But she just said she's not even supposed to exist. That's how she describes it to Loki. We jump back to the TVA where Mobius and the agents are all trying, all these different tactics to try and find them. They have like all of their whatever Nexus detectors up to, meters up to 100. Mobius said something along the lines of, if someone even steps on the wrong leaf, like we'll be able to see it. And we look at the screen where we see the sacred timeline, and we don't see any branches from when Sylvie bombed it in episode 3 or episode 2 rather.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll talk about that later, Dill, or do you want to address this now?
We can talk about it now. I think it was one of those things where when it started branching out and stuff, we thought it was that was gonna be the plot of the rest of the show, was trying to end those timelines. But I think while this was all happening on Lamentis with Loki and Sylvie, I think it is interpreted that Mobius, Ravona, and the other, agents all kind of went to those different spots and reset the time. I do think so, because I just think it would have just taken too much time to go through going to each different place and cutting off the timelines and whatever. And we see how easy it is to do. You just flip over the hourglass, whatever, and it wipes out.
Sure.
I really genuinely think it was one of those things where the show decided it would be smarter, instead of going into that. Instead, let's develop Sylvie and Loki's character, and then at the start of this next episode, we can say, hey, while you've been gone, or while you've been focused on them, they've handled that. Because now Mobius is back, and we never see him actually come back from the store. And we see how quick it is for, everyone to get around with the temp pads, as long as they have batteries. So I really do think it's just understood at this point that they handled that, and now they're back. And everything's kind of back to normal, but now their variants are still out there, and they need to get the variants to keep them under control. And now the
Right.
rest of the show is going to be about what happens at the end, rather than focusing so much on the different timelines. I think
Sure.
that's what I gathered. I just feel like,
I just wish that was something that was made like abundantly
yeah,
clear to the audience. Like
hmm
we like it, they could have done it so lazily, just like damn, and we just got done fixing like those. Now we have to fix this.
yeah. Well, my big thing last episode was I wish there was one scene with Mobius where he's like, all right, well, let's like go back to the TVA and figure out what we're gonna do, or like, well, we gotta put an end to all these timelines and then we can get the variants, or let's go after the variants. So it's like, I wish they had given us something, and if it had just been a simple like, okay, we're gonna go, let's go reset these timelines, and then we see them all go to different portals, and then it goes to Lamentus with Loki and Sylvie. That's all we needed. Was
Right.
just like, oh, okay, let's go stop this. So then the next episode, when it's one singular timeline, it's like, okay, cool, they stopped it. But yeah, I
Yeah.
agree, they didn't say anything. So,
They didn't
but
say
again,
anything, so
you saw visually that it's not branching out
right.
anymore. There's just one Nexus event. Yeah.
So then we cut back to Loki and Sylvie, and they're really like in their last kind of moments here. And Sylvie just so gently reaches for Loki's hand, and they just take each other's hands, and they're just, looking out into like the apocalypse that is unfolding before their eyes. And we notice something back at the TVA that as they do this, a very odd looking branch starts forming right from the sacred timeline. And Mobius even says, they've never seen a branch like this before. It's a very different kind of Nexus event that they're witnessing before their eyes. But lo and behold, it's the thing that allows them to find Loki and Sylvie. So right before they're engulfed by the rubble of the moon or
Right.
the planet colliding with them, they're able to get back to the TVA.
And I don't know if you noticed, but this shot that before Loki premiered that we thought was Black Widow was just Sylvie, and it was
Yeah,
the
I
reflection
know.
of the colors. No, I was with it too. I was like, oh, okay, so that was a red herring, and I'm glad, because I do think if you add too many characters, it could get overcrowded. So like, I get it, but it's just funny because I was like, oh, that totally looked like Black Widow in the trailer, but now looking at it now, I'm like, oh, it's Sylvie.
Yeah. Yep. I didn't want to come to terms with it. I think I knew deep down, but I didn't want to. I was in denial.
Yeah.
I did not want to accept that at all. So Loki and Sylvie are taken to two different rooms at the TVA. Mobius, kind of feeling very betrayed by Loki, throws him into a time loop where we got a nice little Sif cameo. Lady
Yeah,
Sif made an appearance in this
she's
episode where
back.
she gets mad at Loki for he had just cut half of her hair off. So Loki is now stuck in this time loop as punishment, where she comes in, punches him, knees him right in the crotch. Excuse me, I just dropped my pencil. And walks off, and he just kind of has to deal with this until Mobius is ready to deal with him. Mobius wants to talk. Okay, so then we see Mobius at Ravona's office, and he's trying to convince her to let him talk to Sylvie, and Ravona just doesn't let him. And on the way out, I noticed that I caught him say that B-15 catches him and is like, "Oh, what did she say?" Or what did Loki say anything to you like while you were in the room with him? And he tells her like, "Oh, he told me that the TVA is lying to us." But she's kind of dealing with it all internally, that since she was also under some enchantment, she knows or she might know, or she thinks she knows that like something weird is going on with the TVA.
Yeah.
We can
Well,
see
and
her.
we know something weird happened with her and Sylvie too, when Sylvie was young as well, and that's kind of why I think she's preventing Mobius from talking to Sylvie, because she's also like, Sylvie knows because Sylvie knows what's up from when she was a little girl, because
Yeah,
she did escape. Yeah, so it's
right.
like, and no one can talk to Sylvie except for Ravona, because if anyone else talks to Sylvie, the truth comes out about Ravona.
Exactly. And right before Mobius turns the corner to go back to Loki, he says, "We've dealt with Kree, Titans, and vampires." And it's like these two demigods that are, taking us out, which is very interesting for
Yeah,
him to just throw that in there.
I don't know if you saw how excited I got about vampires, because you
No,
know what
I
that
did.
means. That means Blade is coming, and we know it's coming, but that means it's
Mhm.
confirmed that Blade is here to stay. Which I've never actually seen the original Blades. I've seen scenes from it, but like I've read some of the comics, and I love Blade. So we'll do a show about that eventually, watching the Blade trilogy, because those comics are fun. So
Exactly. So we're scene 5, we're in the time loop with Loki, and he's kind of been going through this a number of times. He knows everything that Sif is going to say, so he finally just like he tries a new tactic to deal with her. He has this like beautiful speech where he says, I crave attention because I'm a narcissist who's scared of being alone. And in that moment, Sif gives in. She reaches out her hand for him, helps him up off of his knees, and just says, you are alone and you always will be. And we kind of see this like this thought of Loki, always being on his own, being alone, like really not accepting love, like not truly learning how to like love himself figuratively and literally.
right.
Um we kind of see this, theme happening a lot in this episode of Loki really coming to terms with like, loving himself and understanding that he doesn't have to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just interesting that that's like this is the time loop that Mobius decided to throw him in, is when Sif is saying you will always be alone, like you have always been alone and you always will be.
Yep.
So then Mobius questions Loki about his relationship with Sylvie. And, Loki goes off on this whole tangent, this like
Elaborate lie.
elaborate lie about how he's always been in control. He met Sylvie back in the past, and like they've been conjuring this plan together, but she's just a pawn, and he's gonna kill her the second that he's done with her. And Mobius is like, well, great, it's already been done for you. Like, it's fine now. You don't have to deal with her. And obviously, this breaks his heart in that moment.
Right.
To which Mobius realizes that, oh my God, Loki, like you like her. Does she like you? You like yourself. This is like a variant of you. Like, how narcissistic can you get from like literally loving a version of
Right.
yourself from another existence? He says
Mhm.
it's like a demented like relationship.
Because on paper it is,
Yeah.
it's weird. We talked
Yeah.
about it. It's like the
Yeah, we
idea of
did.
like, when you're like looking at a new haircut. Spoiler alert.
I was
I
gonna say, Dill, I was looking at it in the beginning, and I was like, did Dill get a haircut? Look at
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, it's my wedding hair. And I
Mhm.
just, I was like, it's like when you're looking at yourself in the mirror and like, yeah, I look good. It's kind of like that, except it's an actual person, not a
Yeah.
mirror. And it's a little weird, but at the same time, just because I don't know if it's gonna get romantic ever, we'll get there when we talk a little bit more about it. But the sexual tension is definitely there, even if it's not a romantic feeling. There's definitely an admiration. There's definitely
Mhm.
something there between the two of them. So I don't know. I know some people are a little bugged by the fact that like Loki's kind of wants to bone himself, but it's like I think it's a little more layered and involved than that.
I don't know. I'm kind of like more happy that Loki is like loving someone like beyond himself. Like,
Right? Even though it is himself,
I mean,
but
but
yeah,
like if you I feel like if they didn't know that about each other, it wouldn't be weird.
right.
Like if they
It's
just
like Jess and
stumbled.
Robbie and New Girl. It's like Jess and Robbie and New Girl. They're fine until they find out they're cousins, and then
Okay,
it's weird.
no. I'm not saying that's okay,
But that's
cuz
the
they're
same.
not related. They're
They
just like this.
are themselves. They are the
They're
same.
okay, they're themselves, but they're from two like separate like universes, right? So if they just like happen upon each other and never knew that, like, oh, like I'm you just from a different like time,
Maybe
it
like
it wouldn't
so
be that.
if Vision and White Vision just started like kissing, is it weird?
Well, they're robots, so I guess it's not
Oh,
weird.
okay, all
They're
right, yeah. Oh,
androids.
so it's not weird. Okay. Anyway, that's just an interesting conversation to have because I
I
don't think
was
there's a
just
right and wrong.
I listen, like I really haven't been craving for Loki to have a love interest, because I really do think that he's just like such an interesting, complex
Right,
character on his own, that he's
right.
never needed that layer of like a
Hmm.
romantic partner, regardless of
I
who
agree.
it is.
Hmm.
But the fact that they're like giving him one, I'm like, this is interesting.
Hmm.
something's
Yeah.
interesting here. And I think we all just need to like remove the fact that like, yes, they are the same
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. I'm looking
And
at
just
it
kind of
more.
roll with it. I don't know.
I'm looking at it more of like as a metaphor for loving himself. Like
Right.
he's finally learning to love himself and kind of, see himself for his good stuff, for like the
Yes.
good things about him rather than the I'm a mischief god and I create chaos. Instead, he's like, no, I'm like I am more than that, and like
Yeah.
learning to love that part of him. And I think it's more of a metaphor for that, a personification of that. But again, who knows? Maybe we'll
No,
get
I agree with
physical. Who knows? We'll see.
I agree with you, Dill.
Yeah.
So then this whole conversation has pushed Loki right over the edge. He finally just like reveals to Mobius, regardless of whether or not he's going to believe him, that Mobius is a variant. He was not created by the Timekeepers. He was ripped from his home, from his life, and he's been his memories have been erased, and that he's just been told like everything he knows about the TVA is a lie. And Mobius doesn't believe him. Maybe he half believes him in that moment, but he definitely doesn't let Loki see it. And he just throws Loki back into the time loop because he can clearly see that, all right, you're going to keep lying to me. We're not getting anywhere here. Back in the time loop with Sif, you go. And Loki says, like, out of all the liars in this place, you're the biggest one of all. And it's not because you lied to me about Sylvie. It's because you're lying to yourself and you know it. And I feel like that really like resonates with Mobius
Yeah.
because he goes to he goes back to Ravona's office. Well, before that, we have this moment where Agent B-15 pays a visit to Sylvie and is
Right.
like, come with me. And they go back to Roxcar together. But before that, Mobius internalizes everything that Loki tells him and goes back to Ravonna, and where Ravonna asks him, if you could go anywhere, any place, anytime, where would you go? And which is important later. And Ravonna reveals, they're closing the case because they have both the variants. They're going to turn them over to the Timekeepers. Everything's going to go back to normal. So they're celebrating the fact that they just closed the case. And she says that the Timekeepers want to see the variants pruning and that they want to meet Mobius. And Mobius is like, oh, well, it's about time. Pun intended. That's right. I'm
Oh, I
intending
get
it
it. I get it. I get
because
it.
I
Yep.
said it's
Good job.
about time.
Like
Thank
it's
you.
about time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Ravonna says that so then Mobius asks her, like, why wouldn't you let me interview Sylvie? Like, I just wanted to ask her a few questions. And then we kind of see this, fib, if you will, where Ravonna, I think, takes advantage of the fact that she knows Mobius, maybe crushing on her a little bit and says, well, I didn't want anything to happen to you. I was protecting you. She's dangerous and she already got to 2 of our agents. Like, I couldn't deal with the fact that if something happened to you. And Mobius is kind of like, all right, well, now I definitely know that you're lying because you would never say something like that to me. So then Mobius takes her TemPad and replaces it with his. And now we're at Roxcar with Sylvie. And she allows B-15 access to her memories. And we see this moment of just like, oh my gosh, like we see it not in her eyes because her eyes are closed in the scene, but like we hear it in her voice that she's like, oh my gosh, like that was my life. I look so happy. Like that's who I was. Like I want to be that person again, or I want to go wherever that timeline is. And she just simply asked Sylvie, now what? Like now what do we do? So we kind of see that this arc, this whole like 180 B-15 has taken from compared to, episode 1 to now,
Where episode 1, she's almost just kind of like this very stereotypical, like tough, like ass kicker, sidekick kind of tough lady. And now it's like so much more complexion to her character. I agree.
So then we see Mobius in the library and he watches like a confessional tape of C-20 being interviewed by Ravonna and a few other people. And she's telling them like, oh, like you're not understanding me. Like I had a life. I was at a bar. I remember that place. I had friends. Like this wasn't like an illusion that she planted in my head. This was real. And Ravonna just says, I've heard enough of this. I'm stopping this. And we kind of, now are getting the idea that her mind was not messed up when she came back. She knew the truth and she knew what was going on, and they had to eliminate her so she couldn't, reveal it to anyone else. Mobius goes back for Loki after he finds out the truth, and they kind of join forces as friends. And they have this moment where Mobius is like, you can be anything that you want, and you can choose to be good, just in case no one's ever told you differently in your life. I believe that you can be a good person, which is, they both tell each other things that they both kind of like need to hear,
Yeah.
But then as soon as they get back into the TVA from the time loop, Ravona's there waiting for them with a bunch of TVA agents.
Yep.
She realizes that her tempad was stolen by Mobius, and Mobius says, you know where I would go if I could go anywhere? I would go back to my life. I probably had a jet ski, and I'd be riding on my jet ski. And before he can say anything else, she says, prune him, and he gets pruned. And I was like,
feel? Yeah.
I audibly said, no, not Mobius. Oh my God.
Here's the thing
so
with
sad.
Marvel. I was upset, but 4 seconds later I go, he's not gone. Because Marvel now has just made this like thing where like even if they're gone, they're not really gone, because everyone dies in Infinity War and everyone knew they were coming back. Just like when Black Widow dies at the end of Endgame, she's getting her own movie, and will she ever like come back? Probably not. Like, but it's always like that thing where I'm like, we're gonna see him again. Maybe not this version of him, but he's a variant. Keep in mind, so I feel like we're gonna see him. I just don't see the show ending without him on a jet ski. I just don't see it happening. I think I've always envisioned the last shot of the show to be him on a jet ski. But all that being said, while I do think there's a possibility Mobius returns, and we'll talk about the post-credit scene as well, also being an avenue to that. But it was emotional because it also just happened so quick, and you realize just how powerful Ravonna and like just the idea of the TVA is, that they can literally just wipe you from existence in like seconds, which is crazy, which is scary.
I would just like to toot my own horn a little bit and say that I'm pretty sure last week I said, I don't trust this judge. I think that she knows more than she's letting off, and that she's ultimately going to be like not the main, but like, one of the antagonists that they're going to have to deal with in the show.
You were right. You were
so
right. I was
I'm
wrong.
just going to say, I think I called it a little bit.
Yeah, I was wrong. I said she was, she's also being tricked, and it's going to be one of those things where she realizes she was wrong and she can't let it go. But you were very right. She was in on at least enough to. We'll talk about when we get to the actual timekeepers themselves, but she knows a lot more than she lets on. And you were right. She is at least some antagonist to some degree and extent, and we saw that especially with the temp pad video when she very clearly killed. Was it C20?
Yeah, like, C20.
It's very, very clear that she's up to no good, which is sad, but also like cool. We got another cool villain. So
yeah, I would just like to point out that she literally went from being like, I didn't want anything to happen to you, I was protecting you, to nope, get rid of him, prune him, we need him gone.
I have a theory when it comes to Ravonna that I will wait till the very end, because it might be a theory that is like one of the weirdest, maybe like biggest stretches of anyone's imagination, but I have a cool theory that I just kind of put a few pieces together, and I'm like, what if this is what's going on? But we'll get there at the very end, because I want to like actually talk about the stuff that we do know.
Right. So then we cut to Loki and Sylvie being brought to an elevator where they're going down to meet the timekeepers. And while in the elevator, Sylvie asks her, like, what, like, do you remember taking me? And Ravona's like, yep, I do. And she's like, why did you take me? What was my Nexus event? And Ravonna says, I don't remember. And I'm like, that's lame. Because I really wanted to know.
One of two things. Either A, my theory is true, which I'll get later.
Okay.
B, well, not that my theory is true, but like it comes to a point where I think she just stripped her. I don't think there was a Nexus event. That was what my first thought was. There was no Nexus event. She just took her for another reason. She took her out of her timeline, and there was no Nexus event. And the second option is literally that she doesn't care, that she's so unsympathetic and unempathetic that she just doesn't care who she takes, and it doesn't really matter. It's just like they're basically chess pawns, which could very well be the case. It's just like, I don't give a shit. I don't care. You're
Yeah.
just like it's just another Friday to me, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But there might be some other ulterior motives. I don't know. We'll
Mhm.
see. Because obviously we didn't see her do anything drastically out of the blue. She was playing with her toys when she was taken. So
Exactly.
it's not like Loki where he literally just got the
He
Tesseract and
got a
hopped out.
Tesseract and went bloop.
Yeah,
So then do we finally meet these omnipotent timekeepers.
yeah.
And they're these like three blue looking dudes wearing cloaks. One of them has a mustache. You know,
Pretty sick
they're
mustache too.
pretty
Yeah.
sick mustache. You're right. They're sitting in like a triangle formation, and they're like, "Are you ready to finally like face the consequences for your crimes?" And Loki's like, I've lost they say something like, are you ready to kind of like die? And they're like, and Loki says, well, I've lost track of the amount of times I've been killed, so go ahead, like do your worst.
Right.
And um and in the midst of doing their kind of back and forth thing with the timekeepers, Sylvie starts getting like reset, kind of like how we saw Mobius doing it to Loki in
Right.
episode 1, and Ravonna realizes that she's not doing it. So who's doing it? Boom, B-15 shows up and she sets Loki and Sylvie free, and she says for all time, always, and then
Yeah.
throws Sylvie a knife or a sword or a machete to fight with, and they start brawling. Meanwhile, I'm watching this fight go down, and the timekeepers do absolutely jack shit. They were like, "Oh, we're just going to watch this scene play out. We're fine. Let's see what
Like sipping their
happens."
tea.
Exactly. They brought out
Their
their
oil.
popcorn. They were set. Sylvie overpowers Ravonna. She throws her sword. Oh yeah. So then once they kind of get rid of like the agents they were battling with, they try one last effort to stop Sylvie from, killing anyone else or doing anything else. And she said, "You're a daughter of the timekeepers too. Like, if you just let us like live, like we'll tell you everything." And she was like, "Oh yeah, really?" Just like chucks her sword right at the middle one where
Yeah.
she completely decapitates him.
Mm.
And
It
as
was
it's
a it was
rolling
a
down.
total Star Wars moment. I will not spoil which character, but it is a very Star Wars moment, and I
Okay,
loved it.
thank you for not spoiling it for me. And we totally see that it is a robotic head, and these three beings are not beings at all. They are just androids. They are just nuts and bolts and wires. And
They
it's
are
like,
Disney World animatronics.
exactly. That's exactly what they are. So then Loki goes to tell Sylvie, something he's been meaning to get off his chest. He says, like, "Oh, this is so hard for me, but like, I need to tell you something." And right before he can get the words out, we see his chest being pruned. And the last thing to go before he's completely eliminated is his face.
Mm,
And Sylvie once again overpowers Ravonna, who is not dead, just kind of like, unconscious as they always
right.
are. And she tells Sylvie, "You know what? Just do it." Once Sylvie has the pruning stick, and she's like, "No, you're going to tell me everything." And
Yeah,
then
that was a cool moment. That was a
yeah,
cool moment. Just I love that Sylvie moment, and I have to toot my own horn because I did say Timekeepers. It's Wizard of Oz 2.0. It
you
is
did, Dill.
some sort of Mandarin thing, even though the Timekeepers are just machines. Like it was a front for something else or
Mm-hmm.
someone else. So we'll theorize on who that might be, or
No,
you know,
you were totally right. And honestly, once you put that in my head, as soon as I saw these three like dudes, I was like, "There's no way these guys
yeah.
are fucking real. They're not
I didn't
real."
think they were androids, but I thought they might have been just like other guys who were just dudes just chilling up there. Like they didn't have the power. They were just
I
kind of
didn't
the
think that
front.
they were. I don't know. I really didn't think that they were like real looking, like at all. I
Yeah.
was like, this is gonna be like a giant screen or something, like a
Right. Right.
projection. Like I don't
Well,
even
that's
know
Wizard
what
of
this
Oz. Yeah.
is.
Hmm.
But yeah, I was like, there's too much like smoke and mirrors, like it's foggy and like the lights are dim. I'm like,
And their voices too were just very
yeah,
like.
they were hard to understand. I had to put the subtitles on because I was like, I
Oh
had
yeah,
no idea what they're
me
saying.
too. Yeah.
Because they were like,
You
oh,
guys are the timekeeper.
no, yeah, exactly. That was exactly
What
it.
do you want from us?
Dill, have you ever considered doing voice acting? Because you can just like
Yeah.
mimic things like so well. Like your Owen Wilson gets me every
I don't
time.
know, man. I might dabble in some of that. Wow.
Dude,
I
you
don't know.
should, like,
I
legit, because
maybe. Yeah, maybe.
you should try, because I think you'd
Yeah.
make it. You'd make it big in the voice acting community. So then we get our first post-credit scene of this series, which obviously the biggest question as soon as the credits rolled was, "Oh my god, is Loki really dead?"
And
And
it's
that was
not, but
immediately answered for us when he woke up
yeah.
and was like, "Oh my god, where am I? Am I dead? Is this hell?" And then we hear a voice say, "No, you're not, but you will be soon if you don't come with us." And we turn and we see four different Lokis. We see classic Loki in like the yellow and green classic comic book outfit. We see a kid Loki from the Young Avengers. We see a boastful Loki, and we see an alligator Loki.
Which is awesome. That was awesome. Like what these four, like I just saw him. First off, first person that caught my eye was Richard E. Grant. I'm a huge fan of
Mhm.
his. He
Mhm.
was in Logan, as we know. He's kind of like the bad guy in Logan. He's in Star Wars as well. He was in a great movie, Can You Ever Forgive Me, with Melissa McCarthy. He is awesome in
Mm.
that role. Oscar nominated for that role. We'll
Mhm.
add that to the list. But yeah, he's great. I loved him singing the garb. It was the WandaVision Halloween episode all
Mhm.
over again, like the
Yeah,
classic Loki look.
100%.
And then my other favorite was, of course, Alligator Loki, because who doesn't fucking love that, you know?
Yeah, who doesn't?
Yeah. And Kid Loki too. Like you said, Young Avengers. You know, we have Tommy and Billy. They're somewhere
Mhm.
out there that we're gonna rescue them. And then, what was it? Oh my gosh, his grandson
Elijah?
Elijah's, or yes, Isaiah's grandson Elijah,
Uh-huh.
who is also a Young Avenger in the
Mhm.
comics as well. So this Young Avengers thing, we're getting Florence Pugh in Black Widow. We're getting Haley Steinfeld in Hawkeye. Like it might be coming
We're
together. Who
collecting them
knows?
all, like
Yeah, gotta
baseball
catch
cards
'em
here.
all.
Gotta
Oh, I was thinking
catch them
Pokemon.
all.
I was thinking Pokemon, but baseball cards too.
Well,
Um,
you collect them all with Pokemon cards,
yeah, yeah,
so
that's right.
we're on the
Um,
same page.
yeah. So thoughts on the episode in general? Like you said, you couldn't wait to talk about it. I mean, I liked it a lot. Like it definitely set up so much to come, and I like how it was like this is really what the show is about. The fact that there's some other secret behind the timekeepers. Like now we're
Mhm.
full force ahead for these last two, but the Owen Wilson and Loki, both their deaths, sorry, Mobius and Loki, their deaths, like I said, because the norm for MCU is someone dead is never truly gone, and like we always end up seeing them again. And Loki himself has died so many times,
Mhm.
that it's like everything is emotional, but not that full 10 out of 10, because it's like I know we're gonna see them again, and it's not because they're credited for more episodes, but in a show called Loki, Tom Hiddleston's not going anywhere, and we even see
Right.
him in post credits, and that means Mobius is probably also not going anywhere.
Yeah.
He'll be somewhere else. But the question now is Mobius in his own little Mobius world, or
Mm.
is he on the same world that Tom Hiddleston's on? Is this where all the variants go when they're zapped away, or when they're what is it called, pruned?
Pruned.
Um, what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think this is like where all of them go, or just the Lokis go, or what do you think?
I don't know, because I saw them and I was like, "Oh my god, it's just a colony of Lokis." And if you look really closely, Dill, you see in the background that that is a dilapidated Stark Tower. So
Yep,
this is like
Avengers
a
Tower. Yep.
post-apocalyptic New York where we're setting set in. So it's
Hmm.
like, is this just where all the Lokis go from like back to like 2012 or something?
Well, my thought is maybe everything that is ever reset by those little things, maybe that's where that goes too. Maybe we're
Mm.
gonna come across a little Sylvie's toys, because remember they're zapped away, and maybe
Mm.
he's gonna come and see the little Valkyrie toy and be like, "Oh, Sylvie, this is where everything goes when they are pruned. Let's
Mhm.
put everything else back to their timelines," or something like that. I don't know where this is headed, because there's only two more episodes left.
Mhm.
There's only an hour and a half of television left to go. And that's
Mm.
kind of crazy, because I don't know what's going to happen, because you have Sylvie and Ravonna, you have Loki and these new Lokis, and we all know where the hell Mobius is. Yeah, what are your thoughts, theories, anything like that?
Honestly, my biggest question walking away from this episode was, does Ravonna, like, what does she actually know about the timekeepers? Like, was she under the impression that every time she went to that room that those were like real beings, or did she absolutely 100% know that they were fake?
Well,
Like, because
yeah.
we see a shot of her talking to, it's not, it's not all for just other people. She went in there at the beginning of the episode by
Hmm.
herself. So unless
Yeah.
they were just showing us that, to just throw
Yeah.
us off,
Yeah.
or if
Maybe
she
is she
actually does
behind it?
believe that,
Who knows?
the timekeepers like were real,
Right. Maybe
you
when they
know?
get decapitated, that's almost like a wait, what type moment, but we didn't
Yeah,
really see that. And I think if that had happened, maybe she would have been like,
because
wait,
I think when the decapitation happened, she was like unconscious during that. But
right. But
still,
she's still
when you wake up and like see that one of them's headless and you thought that they were the almighty timekeepers, I think it would have been more, shocking for her.
I feel like
So,
if she was not in on it, she would not have had that. She wouldn't have fried Loki. She wouldn't have done it because she would have been like,
mm,
"Wait, guys, I don't know what's going on." And then there's another villain to walk behind the curtain, out in front of the curtain that was behind. I really
sure.
don't know. I do have one extensive theory, but let's get into first like Easter eggs. Do you have any Easter eggs?
Oh, well, when we saw the I only have one really. When we
Mm-hmm.
saw the shot of the TV again with the sacred timeline on it, we saw that they were tracking like two locations at the top at the time we saw it, and it was Wrightsville, Pennsylvania, and Morag. And I looked
Mm,
in to see if there was anything to do with Marvel with Wrightsville, Pennsylvania. I couldn't find
right,
anything, but obviously we do know Morag from Guardians of the Galaxy. That's where Peter Quill found the Power Stone,
right.
and where War Machine and Nebula went back in Endgame to get it. So that's just
Yeah.
my little Easter egg.
Yeah, I don't have any Easter eggs. I just have a one little tweet that I saw that I wanted to mention about what's her name, Sophia Di Martino, who plays Lady Loki herself, Sylvie. It's not easy being a working mama. Genius Christine Wada, sorry, I'm looking from far away, designed Sylvie's costume and added concealed zippers so I could pump easily and nurse my baby between takes. Little big things like this that make it possible for me to do my job and be a parent. I'm forever grateful, which I have to say, that level of commitment is amazing, and that level of acceptance from the team to work around it and not just
Mhm.
say we'll get someone else. That means they really trusted that this would be their only Sylvie, and they really wanted to cast her, Sophia Di Martino, and just a
Yeah.
commitment from her to be able to juggle being a mom at the same time, because she
Yep.
is really the breakout of this. I mean, we knew Owen Wilson. I mean, a lot of people knew Owen Wilson would be great. I didn't think he'd be as great as he is, and he's great,
Mhm.
but he's got like such a good track record as an actor. We knew it was like special that we were getting him in the series. We knew Tom Hiddleston was going to be great, and Alyssa
Mhm.
Holland. But she's been really the breakout. She has been the one that everyone's been like, "Whoa, like this character's so cool, so interesting." So I just give her props because that's awesome.
That's
Um,
great. I'm so glad you showed me that, Dill,
mhm.
because I love things like that.
Yeah,
We need to normalize women juggling work and being mothers,
yeah.
as we
It's
do need to normalize men being fathers and working as
mhm.
well.
And being able
So,
to work around if they are pregnant or do need the time off, being able to work
mm,
around that as well, and not just say, "Oh, you're fired," or "Oh, we're going to send your character off to jury duty for a little while." Anyway, that was a dig at New Girl. I love that
yep,
show, but it
yep,
was
yep,
also
yep.
like, come on. All right.
No, I remember.
So,
I remember that.
anyway,
And
my theory. I okay. So I was
I'm
thinking.
excited. Listen, nothing's too far fetched for me, Dill.
So some of the questions I've had was this Mobius Ravona connection. There's something there.
Okay.
This pen, FDR High School. There's
Okay.
something there. The fact that she took a child out of a perfectly normal setting where she clearly wasn't doing anything to disrupt this timeline. Kind of weird. So, I put a little theory together, and it's almost like it makes me think of this movie, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where this couple is in a breakup. And they decide to erase the memory of each other from their minds, and like it's a
Mm.
cool trippy sci-fi thing about like how humans end up either coming together, or pulling apart, even when they've had their memory erased. And there's this really cool science aspect. Anyway, but it made me think of this idea of like righting our wrongs from the past and changing them and trying to like redo or reset the past and the time and all that. So I had this theory. Um, Let me go take you back to the beginning. FDR High School. This girl meets this boy. They fall in love. They have a kid. There's high school sweethearts. They have a kid. They meet at FDR High School. They fall in love. They have a kid. Dad has a really nice job. They live on the bay with a jet ski. He loves his jet ski. They love their little kid. Some tragedy happens. They lose the little kid. Father, mother go through a horrible tragedy together, and the father leaves the mother. And there's a very he wants nothing to do with the mother because he blames the mother for whatever happened, and they split up. And so, in order to basically get the life back that she wanted, what if there's some alternate timeline where Ravonna and Mobius are a couple, and they met at FDR High School and they fell in love, and something happened that split them apart, and Ravonna's solution was to create this whole other timeline with variants of people she loved and stripping them from the timeline to live with her and have him there always as someone who does appreciate her and value her. So my theory, it's a very far-fetched one, is that they were married in some other timeline. They split up, and rather than living this life without him, she made this TVA to have Mobius with her forever. And her stealing the girl out of her timeline, Sylvie, was her trying to then have another child, like kind of almost take one for herself, but then she escaped. And that's why she is so resentful. And it just, knowing that when they are pruned, they don't die forever, because we see Loki goes to this next step. That's when I was like, well, maybe, because she wouldn't have just killed Mobius. I think there was too much of a connection that she wouldn't have just killed Mobius for that. She would have imprisoned him or done something else. But I think maybe frying him or pruning him or whatever could have sent him to another timeline. So that's my like really far-fetched story, is that Ravonna and Mobius know each other in another life, and they were connected once, and this is all Ravonna's way of being close to Mobius again. It is a very, very like out there theory, but like that would be cool if like that's revealed to be the truth. Like that was just something I thought of, and I was like, I could write for the show. Like,
So you think Ravonna pulled a Wanda and just made her own timeline to get her family back together?
Wait, that is so fucking
So
funny.
you just like took the plot of WandaVision and just boom, planted it into
I didn't realize
Loki.
I was when I did.
Listen, I'm not saying it's any less plausible now. I'm just saying.
But she's doing it maliciously, and because we know Wanda in her subconscious, it just kind of came out of her. But maybe Ravonna had this like masterful plan, or it was like her deal, like, oh, you would serve the timekeepers, because I feel like there might be someone else there that's behind the timekeepers. Maybe it was like in order to serve the time, in order to get Mobius back, you'd have to serve the timekeepers and basically be a slave to them their whole lives. Sure. That's not a great choice of word, but you know what I mean, like a prisoner of them.
Right. No, I know what you're saying.
Because the FDR High School thing was what really made me think, like, okay, maybe, I don't know what the deal is, but like I thought like there's a connection there, and there's like a very big betrayal. And why would she just steal a little girl out of her timeline? Maybe it's because she was trying to, I don't know. That's like my theory. And if it happens,
daughter back or something.
Yeah, like not her daughter, but just a daughter back.
But just a representation of
it. It is kind of like WandaVision now that you put it that way. It's exactly that. So maybe like the Marvel minds are kind of like mine, where they don't realize that they just did it 2 shows ago, and they're like, this is genius. And then they're like, then someone like you has to be like, we just did that. And so
I'm not saying it's any less like legit. I'm just saying like,
well, because I've always thought the variants seem like that, like whole white vision idea. Like Vision is now like a variant of Vision. It's kind of similar. Yeah, that's a good point though. It's kind of like WandaVision. So maybe it's not, I mean, it's not gonna, that's not the case. It's just, I thought that'd be like a cool thing. Like, what if they did have a history in the main timeline, and this is her world that she created to basically get him back, get his love back, and have him around all the time.
Yeah. It definitely makes you question why Ravonna is like so loyal, and why is she the only one that gets to know like the truth about everything.
And she's not the voice between the timekeepers either.
Yeah, because she seemingly started the same way as everyone else. Like she started as an agent and she worked her way up to the judge, and then maybe once you get to a certain status in the TVA, then you're able to, kind of unlock all the secrets. But the fact that she's so loyal to the TVA and these timekeepers who she must have realized are not real because she had little to no reaction to one of them being beheaded.
Hmm.
It's like who is she actually working for, or is everyone actually just working for her?
Hmm. And maybe it's not like Mobius was her husband. Maybe it's like just her wanting control and wanting to have that, and like she pulls people from all different sorts of places, and wants them in her presence. Like she wants people to serve her. Like she wants the attention, the
Mhm.
popularity, and the fame, whatever.
Sure.
Um, yeah. When you brought up the WandaVision thing, though, now I'm like, oh, maybe not. But it was still something I thought of. I was like, what if they are like, I don't know. I don't know. It was a
No,
cool
the
theory.
FDR high school thing definitely has to be explained by the end of this, because that
Right.
was like too like prominent of a shot for us not to, be invested in
Hmm.
that.
And
So,
I do want to know why she took Sylvie, because there was no
yeah,
Nexus
for
event.
sure.
There was nothing she was doing that changed the timeline, unless for some reason in the real timeline, like it just doesn't make sense to me. Like she did not do anything that warranted it. And I think that's why she's so threatened by Sylvie, because Sylvie can call her bullshit out. Like, hey, you took me from my timeline and you don't even remember why. That's why I'm sort of like, maybe she knows why. Maybe it
Yeah.
was selfish, and then when she escaped, it was like a failure, and now it's like, well, now we got to hunt her down and kill her, and because that's kind of where we were when we first met the judge, was we got to get this variant and get rid of her, and prune her. But I'm interested to see now what like this whole prune thing is, like where all these people go. Um, and how they'll get back. That's like
Yeah.
another question, because honestly, the big question last week was like, how are they going to get off Lamentus? And I feel like it was kind of not a half-assed way to get back, but it was very much just like very basic. Like Mobius found them, let's bring them back. But because
Mhm.
of their connection, making the Nexus event, they were able to track them. That was important. But then actually getting them off was as simple as a portal, as them using their temp pad. So it's like, you know, I feel like maybe it's going to be as easy as that. As what's her name, B15.
Mhm.
What if B15 is the one who's like, okay, I found Loki, let's get him back. He's
Yeah.
in some other. So I don't know. Any
And
other thoughts going into the next one? Yeah,
I mean, and we can't forget that at some point we do see a President Loki. So it's like in the next two episodes,
we
when does
do.
that happen?
We do.
Well, like remember there's like a shot of him in like one of the trailers where he has like a button and it literally
Oh,
says like President Loki, and he
I'm
like
wondering if
says
this
something.
like, I wonder if this new colony is like gonna be like we're
He's
electing
gonna
you our
just like
leader.
take over. But
Maybe.
they're all Loki, so they're gonna be like, no, I'm in charge. No, I'm in charge. No,
Yeah,
I'm in charge.
then
I'm the real
alligator.
Loki.
Yeah, the alligator's gonna be in charge.
He's just gonna pull like a Perry the Platypus and just go like I can't make a platypus noise.
I can't do it either. I can't do
It's
it
like
anyway. Oh.
oh, there you are, Perry. That was
Anyway, that
pretty
was your
close.
ASMR for the week. That was your ASMR for the week, everyone. You're welcome. Any last thoughts though about this episode? I know my theory is far fetched now and very too similar to WandaVision, but they kind of recycle some shit sometimes. So I don't know.
This is the MCU. They reduce, reuse, recycle all the time. So
Yeah, are you
uh
excited for Black Widow next week? We're seeing it a week from when we're recording this.
oh my gosh, Jill, I got my work schedule, so I'm all good for Thursday, and I even have off Friday the next day, so I don't have to worry about getting my ass on a train back to New Jersey.
Perfect.
So we're gonna
Yes.
spend 2 days together.
Yeah, it's Black Widow weekend with Kelsey and Dylan. We will be in studio to talk about both Loki and Black Widow. We will be doing both podcasts. We'll probably record the Black Widow one first because it'll be fresh after
Yeah.
seeing it,
Yeah,
and then
yeah, yeah,
maybe and
for
then we'll
sure.
record the Loki one. But anyway, it's gonna be a really fun time. You're getting two podcasts next week. Two. You're gonna get one Loki one, then a Black Widow one. It sucks that Black Widow. It's gonna take 3 whole days for you to see a review for it, but some of y'all won't have seen it yet, and it'll be nice. But for those who have seen it, you're gonna have to wait a few days before spoiler talk. But I'm sure there are plenty other people you can see reviews from, even right now, that have done non-spoiler reviews for it. But I can't wait to talk about a movie. We haven't even figured out what our style and format's going to be like for a movie, because we're not going to be able to go scene by scene because there's going to be like 40 scenes. But maybe we'll just
Yeah.
kind of break down like
And how many
the
notes am
story.
I gonna be able to take in
Right.
the theater?
It'll just be kind of our conversation. We'll film it like we're just talking after a movie, because that's what we're gonna do. We're not
Yeah,
even gonna talk to each other on the way
exactly.
home. We're gonna be like, we'll save it for the for the subway. We're gonna like leave. We'll leave the theater and just start talking about like sports or politics or some shit, so we can
All right.
distract ourselves from the furthest thing from Black Widow as possible. But I'm excited. Yeah, we got our tickets. I'm not gonna tell you where because I don't want anyone to hunt us down and find us. But a very very big screen that we're very excited. We're doing an IMAX for Black Widow. It's gonna be fun. So if you want to try to find us in one of the 4,000 IMAX theaters in the world, that's all I'll give you is that it's an IMAX. So you gotta, yeah. So that should.
Well, let's not give them any more clues.
I'm not giving them any more clues. I was saying, but I just want to talk about IMAX because like I'm excited because I'm seeing it on IMAX.
Yeah.
It's a Marvel movie. It's an event. We're back. We're back to the theaters. Even though I feel like WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and so far Loki have been very good. Appetizers to fill us up. I think they've been giving us some good stuff. I don't want to say content because content kind of, it's art. It's not just content. Content is like what I do. Like this is content, but this is art. Like they've been giving us some good art. I hate when Kevin Feige keeps saying we got a lot of content for you. It's like it's more than just content. Content is like wearing your socks so your shoes don't get smelly. That's content.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
Last thoughts, Kelsey? Anything else?
No, I don't have any last thoughts. Okay. I have no thoughts.
Yeah, I should go to
late.
Sleep. Yes. Anyway, thank you guys for spending your Monday mornings with us, or Monday afternoons, or Monday nights, whenever you're watching this. If you're watching this in 2035, hope we're still alive.